results from that. We'll look at the table that covers that in just a few minutes. Trochlear nerve is just very cool. What this superior oblique muscle is just one of the coolest muscles in your body. It is so bizarre. It is so weird and cool with what it does. So you should know and understand the trochlear nerve, superior oblique relationship, and the necessity of the trochlea, which is a little chunk of connective tissue. We get into the trigeminal nerve, the three main regions. It's very easy in looking at the face to see these three regions. We have sensory function in here. We have then all of the muscles of mastication. This is really important. So we have this mixed group of functions. We're looking once again, cranial nerve 3, 7, 9, 10, another view of these, and all of the nuclei that are involved. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You have 5 nuclei there, all right? I showed them to you in a different form just a little while ago. So it's just another view of all of the parasympathetic tract pathways and the ganglia. Abducens. Well, this is a simple one. This is an easy one. You should get the, if you get any question about the abducens wrong, you should feel bad. All right? Let me just tell you that right now. Facial nerve is bizarre and crazy. We've got a lot of weird little bits and pieces here. You know, we're going to the tongue, the nasal mucosa, the lacrimal gland, the upper portion of the palate, the submandibular gland in here, sublingual gland. There's a lot going on. Yeah?
Just that figure with the trigeminal, should we be able to label that, or is that like 2 slides back? We were just on. So it seemed like I had extra or different. Yeah. No.
In here?
No. Well,
Well, that's trigeminal. That was the one?
Next.
Oh, this one?
Yeah.
I wouldn't ask you to label something like this. What I would ask you about are the ganglia.
Yeah.
Okay? You should be able to tell me which ganglia are associated with which cranial nerves and which target organs. We've covered those several times now. So at this point, I'm kind of hoping you'll see that relationship. Does that answer that? Cool. Yeah, so we've got the main kind of 5 areas that the facial nerve covers muscle-wise. This becomes really important because there are some muscle disorders that are going to involve the facial nerve. Yeah. Oh, look, here's another ganglion. Yeah. So once again, it's just to keep you on top of ganglia. Ganglia are really important to know and understand. We get into the vestibulocochlear nerve, and you know, you look at this, and it's quite simplistic. You get in here, and all of a sudden, we're in the cochlea, and this whole spiral organ, better known as the spiral organ of Corti, becomes really important because in here, the hair cells are utilized to collect vibratory data from the tectum of the tectorial membrane up here, vibrating against the upper part, stereocilial cells, fibers of the hair cells. So there's a lot happening. Complex structure in here. This, you know, you've got the utricle, the saccule, which make up the vestibular area here. We've got the cochlea. We've got the semicircular canals. We've got the various branches of the vestibulocochlear nerve. All right, this to you should all be second nature. We've got the two windows in here, the oval and the round window. Those are important. We've got the little ear ossicles. Those are important. So understanding this, what's involved here, helps you understand hearing problems and hearing loss. But hair cells are not limited to hearing. You're also using hair cells for detecting position and movement. Now in this case, it's position of your head. This will involve a lot with actual angular movement, general movement. You should know all three groups of hair cells and the associated structures with them. So we've got the hair cells in the macula here. We've got the hair cells in the ampulla. We've got the hair cells in the spiral organ. So you have three sets of hair cells. The relationship with the brainstem and the fiber tracts coming in is also important. I believe I said you should be able to follow these fibers through. So please don't forget that.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What do those little red stars mean?
Oh, those are all structures, that are basically associated with hearing in here. We've discussed the superior olivary nucleus, the inferior colliculus, medial geniculate, the cochlear nucleus here, and both of the cochlear nuclei. So all of those things are things we've talked about. Yeah. In looking at the relationship of the vestibular nuclei with hearing and really optical tracts, all of a sudden in this figure you can start to see that. You can start to see why. When you have problems with your vision, you become dizzy. When you have problems with dizziness, your vision becomes problematic. So this, I think, ties that together nicely. When we get to number 10, the vagus is pretty straightforward. We covered the vagus intimately in the autonomic nervous system, so please be aware of what's going on here. Glossal pharyngeal nerve, okay, glossal, tongue, pharyngeal, pharynx. I mean, that's pretty straightforward. We have components that involve the carotid sinus here, which are going to involve a lot of issues ultimately with pressures and such. And we have the innervation of the posterior part of the tongue. So there's a lot happening. There are times when there are problems with glossal pharyngeal that you might have swallowing problems. The accessory, more appropriately the spinal accessory nerve. This is a nerve that has fibers that have cranial nerve fibers and fibers in it that are spinal nerve fibers. So these are coming from C1 through C3 here. Actually, maybe as low as C5. Typically, the majority are C1 to C3. Involved with neck movement. We get to the hypoglossal, and this is innervating that tremendous group of little muscles inferior to your tongue. These muscles allow you to move your tongue in many different directions. It'll be involved with your ability to speak properly, your ability to swallow properly, and frequently your ability to move food in your mouth and chew properly. So when there are problems with this nerve, there's a lot going on. We transition from here into the eyes, all right? And your four rectus muscles here. So superior, inferior, lateral, and medial. You look at this and you go, wow, I know which cranial nerves innervate which muscles. You should know that. And then we have the superior oblique and the inferior oblique. Once again, you should know that. But then there's the table in your book, 13.1, 568, that goes through the muscles, their actions, their innervations. Okay? So you should know all of those things. Then we sat down and took a look at this, the oculomotor nuclear complex. We have the trochlear nucleus sitting back here. So this whole group sits in the upper part of the brainstem and is involved with a lot of eye movement. I think there's a figure I added a lot of information on what they do, what it does for the eyes. Okay, you should already have that. Be a great little figure too. We looked at the cross section of the eye here with the ciliary muscles and the ciliary ligaments or suspensory ligaments here. Here's your lens. Your lens sits in a membranous capsule. And so as these muscles contract, your eye can flatten or bulge. So, you know, and I'm not saying when they contract, I'm just saying when these contract or relax, you'll either be, the lens will flatten or the lens will bulge. And then we have the pupillary constrictors in here that will constrict your pupil. Between the two of these mechanisms, you can do things like control the amount of light coming in and change the shape of the lens to allow you to focus up close or distant focus. We went through this, Edinger Westphal, lateral geniculate, pretectal. You know, obviously, you have to be able to understand what's going on in here. This is really important. You can lose pupillary reflexes many different ways, so please be aware of that. We transitioned from there, yes?
So in lab, I don't know if we did as much in here, but a couple times you would have this, like, you would cut it at the specific points, you would have to say.
Like
what
say,
happened.
yep. Let's say, I cut this, what happens? I cut this, what happens? Yep, you should be able to do that, absolutely. And the reality is for every fiber tract we look at, that is a good way to think about it. Because you're going to have such an array of patients, and they're going to lose function, and maybe in a bizarre way. They'll lose one part of the function, not all of the function. Or they might have a lesion somewhere, and strangely, they didn't lose anything. And at the age you are, you probably haven't had a lot of experience with talking to doctors about problems or talking to therapists about problems. But your patients are going to ask you questions because the doctors aren't giving them answers. And you know, it's going to be up to you to help explain why you're doing or you're having them do something. You know, so the more you can think about having damage, let's say we damage this, or I don't know, here or wherever, the better your understanding is in order to explain it to somebody else. So, here we go. The tegmentum, the tectum, the basis. The tectum, overwhelmingly, the two caliculi. The tegmentum, lots of nuclei. The reticular formation here is mostly nuclear in this case. There are a few fiber tracts. And then the basis, overwhelmingly fiber tracts. So here was today's figure. All right, this was it. You should have been able to label the superior colliculus, the anterolateral system, any of these cortical tracts, substantia nigra, and the red nucleus. Other than that, anything else is a bonus, so to speak, for you, what you know in there. The more you know in these areas, the better it is. So, we looked at we touched on, we really didn't do much with this, okay? We did a little bit here and there. We're gonna come to